Hidden right behind Cody's restaurant off of 361 is this little gem of a find, Texas Clearwater Oysters. And the owner, Bill, is going to give us a private tour. That's a spat.
It's a baby oyster. It's about
Baby oyster.
4 centimeters, maybe 5 centimeters size, and then in 6 to 8 months they grow to full size.
Oh wow, 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, and growing them at the top of the water column. You can tell the shell is very clean.
Right.
So it doesn't look like one of the ones that's dug up out of an existing oyster reef, natural oyster reef.
Yeah.
And so they also get a lot more sunlight, a lot more oxygen, a lot more phytoplankton. Our farm's pretty unique in that it's the southernmost farm in Texas. Aransas Bay has no freshwater influent into it. It's got lots of Gulf water that comes into it.
Yeah.
We're in an area where the tide affects it a lot, and we're right off Mud Island, and right to the east of us is about 1,500 acres of pristine grass flats. And so on an outgoing tide with a southeast wind, we're right in a gap in Mud Island that all pours out right over the top of our farm, and it's full of nutrients. And
Yeah, because it comes from the grass flats,
yeah,
all those nutrients.
and oysters are very much like wine, picks up the flavor of the water it's in. Wine.
Wow.
Wine has a term called terroir. The grapes grow and pick up the flavor of the soil they're in, the terrain, and oysters have terroir, picks up the flavor of the marine environment, the sea. And so our oysters are super clean and crisp. There's no significant freshwater runoff, pretty consistent salinity. And so our oysters actually are a little more saline than a lot of the other farmed oysters around. A lot of the other farms are up on the backside, the west side of the bays, where they get a lot of fresh water and have a lot of black silt bottom, and ours is hard sand bottom and seagrass nearby. So
that makes a big difference.
Makes a huge difference. So.
Okay.
We pull them out of the bags that are in the water, out of the cages, bring them in, sort them by size. These are our smaller oysters, these are our larger oysters. Some restaurants like the big ones, some like the smaller ones.
Is there a big difference in flavor, like the big ones, or?
No, but the smaller ones are more palatable. They're easier to shuck. Sometimes they get to be more than a mouthful.
Right.
And so it's funny, the nicer, more expensive the restaurant,
Yes.
the smaller the oyster they like, and they'll pay more for it.
For the reasons you just described.
Yeah. We pretty in Port Aransas is not conducive to operating a commercial farming.
Right, so they have to trailer this boat out every day to service the farm. And these are the actual...
So these are the bags.
Okay, that go insert...
Inside
so they insert inside the cages, I see. And that way it's you can easily like take the bags in and out.
Yeah, and then when we get our baby oysters that are 4 centimeters or less sometimes, we put them in, the bags come in different mesh sizes. And so we have the larger mesh for the larger oysters.
Oh yeah.
And then the smaller mesh for the smaller oysters.
Yeah, it's a much finer mesh.
Yeah.
I see. So the little babies don't fall through.
Correct. And so we'll plant, I think I was supposed to go this coming week to the hatchery. We get the one that we ordered from this time is in Bayou La Battery, Alabama, made famous by Forrest Gump.
Oh yeah.
But we were going to pick up 250,000 oysters that are 3 millimeter to 5 millimeter. That would fill up probably 2 cages.
Wow.
And so, but once they start
growing... But then
growing,
you have to transfer them, right?
Yeah, once they start growing, it'll go, one bag will fill up, and then you want to split it. So one bag becomes 2 bags, becomes 4 bags, becomes 8 bags. And so it's constant. Isaiah's maintaining our bags. They get beat up, and
And rotating everything
You
out.
got to power wash them. They get covered up with algae. That's one of the,
Oh yeah.
So if you don't tend to them, they get clogged up and the oysters won't breathe and they won't grow.
Yeah. So they need the fresh water coming in. I mean, not fresh water, the new salt water. Yeah. Right.
And then the cages, they're floating, as you see the pontoons on the bottom and the cage on top. They're built that way. They're in a line. We've got 2 acres. Each acre has 11 lines, and each line has 14 cages. So we got 308 cages, and then 6 compartments in each cage. And they're lined up. There's a main line on the bottom, anchored to the bottom of the bay.
Okay.
And you have laterals that go up and attach to the ends of the cages. And it's set up that way to emulate the tidal flats, because you look at an oyster reef, they're in shallow water. Tide goes out, the oysters
get exposed.
The water comes in, they open up and start feeding. It's their natural cycle. So what we do is once a week, or as much as possible, we'll go and flip those cages where the oysters are out of the water.
Oh yeah.
And set out of the water for a day, or mainly this time of year overnight.
Okay.
And you don't want to let them get too hot.
Yeah.
Flip them over and then come back the next morning, flip them back, and they start feeding again. But it kills all the algae and moss and barnacles and crabs
from growing on them.
From growing on it, so you get a nice clean oyster.
Wow.
And then when we get them from the hatchery, they trick them in. If you look at a natural oyster reef, they dredge those oysters out and pull them up. They're in big clumps. They got to break off the small ones. And they're misshapen.
Yes.
But when we grow them our way, they're singular oysters. So they're not attached to anything. They trick them into thinking they're attached to something.
Right.
And so you have a bunch of singular oysters, and then by tumbling them and drying them out, they get a real deep cup. And
oh yeah, which makes better for serving too, right?
Holds
there you
all
go.
the juices.
Yeah.
And then so we have this contraption. It's called a tumbler and sorter.
Oh yeah.
And so,
just like a rock tumbler for those rock enthusiasts.
Yeah. That has different size orifices.
Yeah.
And so when we go to split the bags, when one bag gets too full, you got several thousand oysters in a bag. They grow at different rates. They're just by nature. And so we'll put them in here, and it'll sort them by size.
So you do put this machine on the boat and take it out there and do that on the water?
We did have a barge out there until the storms came last month. It flipped it and sank it.
Oh my!
We recovered the frame. I had to buy a new motor and and we lost another piece of very expensive processing equipment.
Oh, bummer.
But so this, aside from sorting it by size, and so that it falls through into tubs.
Right.
Then we'll put them back in the water.
Right.
It also chips the edges on them, so they don't grow flat. They grow cupped. It makes them cupped and has a smooth edge on them. That's probably the more. I wish we had a better process, more time to do this more often. We're pretty good at flipping the cages and desiccating them and drying the oysters out, which works good. But when you have if you look at an oyster, sometimes they'll have a real thin fingernail shell on the edge. You shuck it, that breaks off and gets into the oysters.
Yeah.
If that's clean, you get a nice, easy.
Wow. So that's kind of labor intensive to make the oyster come out right with the right cup and the clean edges and all that stuff. There's a lot of parts of the process you do to make that happen.
I used to make fun of all my Aggie friends for going to a school that you could get a degree in animal husbandry in. I thought that was freaking hilarious.
And now, there you go.
I was on a hunting lease with a bunch of Aggies, and they always gave me crap about being a TSIP, and I had to point out eventually that of all those Aggies and me on the farm or on the hunting lease, I was the only farmer.
That's right. There you go.
Farmers fight. No, you fight. They're not going to be fried. We harvest them. Like I said, some restaurants like them small, some of them like them big. But usually the ones that you see, Rockefeller, Some of our restaurants use these as Rockefeller, but if you fry them, they're small enough they shrink down to nothing. And then those are the ones that get the big, huge 6-inch reef oysters, dredged oysters. But in the past 25 years, 80 to 90% of the existing oyster reefs in Texas waters are gone.
Yeah. So
that's why this came up.
Well, and I just read an article about them buying up oyster leases or something like that. So to try and retire those rights that people have to the existing oyster beds.
So if you have a license, I have a license to do what's called off-bottom mariculture. So like my cages float, it's not on the bottom. I leased 2 acres from the General Land Office with approval of every regulatory agency.
You can imagine, yes.
It took over 2 years to get all the permitting in place. I have exclusive right. It's a very long lease, and I have a permit from Parks and Wildlife Department, very long permit, basically in perpetuity. If I don't pay my dues, or if I do something illegal, they can take it away from me, otherwise can't. Same thing with dredgers. Exception is the dredgers can transfer their license. They can sell their license. So you go up to Copano Bay, or even further north, Palacios, Tres Palacios, where they do a lot of dredging. A bunch of those dredgers are from Florida, so they come up here, get our natural resources, and ship them off to Florida.
Oh wow!
So Parks and Wildlife legally can't say we're putting a halt to.
That's why they're buying
dredging.
them up. Yeah.
But so last year they did offered $30,000 to forego their license, and 21% of the dredging fleet gave up their license.
They took advantage of the deal.
This year it bumped it up, I think, to 40%, if I remember my numbers correctly. They just announced it last week. Not quite as big of a buyback as the previous year, but it's nice to be in an industry where 40% of your competitors say, I'm out.
Exactly.
And
so part of the life cycle is after the oysters are shucked, there's who comes by and picks them up?
An organization called Sink Your Shucks.
Sink Your Shucks.
There's one in Corpus called Sink Your Shucks. One up in Houston's called the Galveston Bay Foundation. They'll pick up the old shells. They dry them out for a while, make sure there's not anything nasty on them, and then once, twice, 3 times a year they have an volunteer event to plant those shells, sink those shucks back into the water. And where they are directed by the Parks and Wildlife, and it creates a new oyster reef where there wasn't one, or hasn't been one in a while.
Because there's millions of tiny little plankton
and
things
so
floating around.
All the spawn in the water that it naturally occurs is looking for someplace to stick. So we're just providing a new place for them to grow where there wasn't one before. Instead of digging up an oyster reef, we're creating our own oysters out of thin air, thin water. And as they go through the process, through the restaurants, we put the shells back into the water.
So we're actually creating new natural oyster reef ecosystems.
Instead of digging up the old.
Instead of digging them up. What an awesome life cycle.
It is.
That's cool, Bill. Well, thank you very much, my friend.
You bet. Good to see you, Will.